Hello, folks. I'm Paul Carlson, and I want to welcome you to the Protected Life Weekly. I hope you are doing very well. Now, on today's show, we are going to talk about violence, not necessarily the most fun topic in the world to talk about. We're going to talk about video, and we're going to talk about social media. And we're going to do all of this with a fellow named John Correia. John is the curator, the owner, the video commentary professional at Active Self-Protection. And we're going to talk about Active Self-Protection, what it is, what it's about, and what it might mean to you when it comes to dealing with violence. And folks, it all starts right now. Welcome to the Protected Life. I definitely want you folks to stick around for the best self-defense and personal security information that's available anywhere. Today's show is going to be sponsored by Mag Holder. We're very thankful to have Mag Holder on as sponsors. I use a Mag Holder each and every day. This is a horizontal magazine pouch. It holds my Glock 17 magazine, keeps it right where it needs to be all the time. It's easy to wear, it's easy to conceal, and it's easy to reload with no effort whatsoever with my Mag Holder. So if you're interested in a good, solid way to carry your magazine on your belt for your concealed carry handgun, head to magholder.com. Well, folks, I hope that you are doing well. It's been a week since we've seen you last time. I do want to let you know that, unfortunately, Grant Cunningham is not going to be able to be with us here on the Protected Life. He has got so much stuff going on in the industry. As you folks know, Grant is incredibly active. He's incredibly busy with what it is that he's doing, and the amount of time that it's taken to put this show together and everything that goes into it, it just doesn't fit into where it is that Grant needs to put his time, effort, and energy. And we wish Grant absolutely the best luck as he continues on with all of those fabulous things. And, you know, the show will continue to reflect the influence that Grant had on it as we develop that show, and I am appreciative of that. So, folks, hopefully you will stick with us and be ready to learn more about living the protected life. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about social media today. And social media is really, in a lot of ways, changed the world. It changed the way that we view news, we digest that news, the way we interact with our friends and our friends, if you will. And, you know, it's changed the way that we gather and process information. And it's incredibly important to understand those changes and what they mean to us. And one of the most compelling parts of social media is the video aspect of that social media. And I want to take some time to acknowledge the fact that we've got video everywhere now. Everyone has a high quality video camera in their pocket. Stores and locations have high resolution video going everywhere. And the fact of the matter is, if we take the time to do some digesting of that video, I mean, of course, there's good and there's bad aspects to it, but we can do a tremendous amount of learning from it. And that's exactly what our guest today from Active Self-Protection, John Correia, has done. And so, John, welcome to the Protected Life. How are you doing today?
Thanks for having me. Well, I'm doing great. Life's good, man. Every day's a holiday, every meal's a feast, every formation's a parade, and every paycheck's a fortune.
I love it. It sounds like you are a positive fellow. And of course, I know this because you and I know each other. We've gotten the chance on multiple occasions to spend time together. We first met, we were just talking about SHOT Show 2016. We met at SHOT Show 2015 and have spent some time together since then at the NRA show. And that positive attitude is something that I always appreciate, John. So I'm sure that there are challenges along the way when it comes to active self-protection and what it is that you do. But
life is life, man.
Positive attitude. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Well, life is life. And as they say, 10% what happens to you, 90% how you deal with it. So it doesn't make life any better if you complain about things. So just get after it and get it done.
10% what happened, 90% what you did about it. Love it. That's it. Those are words to live by.
Yeah.
What's dealt with you, do the best you can with it and move on and turn lemons into lemonade. We can go into all of the different ideas right there. But that's great advice, John. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today. Now, let's talk about active self-protection. Active Self-Protection is a website. You can find it at www.activeselfprotection.com. It's also a Facebook page, but more importantly, to me, it seems like it's an information resource. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Active Self-Protection, what it is, and its mission?
Okay, sure. It's funny. I just recently was asked that question by somebody like, "Oh, tell me about your business." And I said, "Well, okay, so there's two sides to the business. One is, it's a self-defense and firearms training company in Phoenix. So I do armed and unarmed combatives, handgun classes, empty-handed skills, martial arts, those things. But the social media aspect is so taken over the business that I joke that it's kind of a social media company at the same time. So what our core is, what our specialty, what I've become known for is narrated self-defense surveillance. So what I am really known for now, what ASP is specializing in is because of the prevalence of video. Now, surveillance video is everywhere. Cell phone video, people are videotaping everything. Is we look at real life self-defense. I've been studying martial arts for almost 10 years now, 9.5 years. And one of the things that stood out to me is that so much advice and so much of what people are being taught is theoretical, is, if someone does this, you do that. But there's very little, and most of it's just anecdotal, rather than looking at what really happens. And so we take real life self-defense encounters, muggings, carjackings, murders, armed robberies, you name it. If somebody is threatened by a bad guy and it's caught on video, then what I do is I take that, kind of do a play-by-play, here's what happened, then back up through it and say, okay, what are the key moments? What were the principles here? If he made it, if the good guy lived or won the fight, what happened? How come he won the fight? If he lost the fight, which that happens too, where did the bad guy get the upper hand? So, and I do that. I try not to do that from a perspective of, well, here's what I would have done in that situation, but more of the general principles. So if you're, a Krav Maga practitioner, I'm not a Krav guy, but whatever, then you can use those principles. If you're a jiu-jitsu practitioner, or you study Aikido, or you study the ancient mystical art of Click Pow, Gun Fu, as we say, then, you can use those principles in your training. And then what I do as well, I just taught a class last night that we take those narrative videos, we watch them for what it does, then we put ourselves in that situation. And we say, how could I have survived here? And then we train. Last night we did about an hour and a half of training around real life skills to win that fight. So that's what ASP is. And we got a very, very vocal and very loyal Facebook page. My Facebook following is, it's kind of stupid how many people we have on Facebook at this point. It's like, wait, what? But we've got YouTube as well. Instagram, I've got a fairly significant following. Twitter, those things. But Facebook is definitely probably the main one.
And so you're really focused in teaching is really the general goal of ASP, the general mission. And you do that both person to person and then through the video narrations. And that's primarily through Facebook. Is that a good summary, John?
Yeah, I think that's a great one. Obviously, the main one is everything we do on our website. So all the narrated videos are on the website, but I embed them natively to Facebook as well, because Facebook likes that a whole lot more. And it's I'm a teacher at my core. At my core, I feel like I don't know something until I've taught it. I've been teaching at the undergraduate and graduate level for about 10 years. And so I just feel like I got to teach something to understand it. And that's good for self-defense as it is for anything else.
Yeah, as a professional teacher, I cannot agree with you more. My background comes from engineering. I started in engineering school and then left engineering school and decided to become a math teacher. And, as an engineering student, I thought I had a pretty good handle on math. Well, the first time I tried to tell a 12-year-old how to divide fractions, it really showed me how little I knew and understood about something. And there's no difference with that, with self-defense, with personal protection, with, avoidance training, all those things. Until you try to teach that to someone else, you really don't have a handle on it. So it sounds to me like you're learning a lot as you go along. Would you say that that's a true statement?
Well, the true master is a student. If you don't, the one who thinks he understands it all is just in for a huge fall. And the perpetual student is the one who says, listen, I know some, or even I know a lot, but I don't know it all. So I'm always learning. We're always trying to say what is there to take out of this? Not just, oh, look, I'm smart and I'm right, but far from that, but rather what is there to learn here? And I'm always for sure hoping to learn. I take a lot of cues. My martial arts instructor, my teacher's teacher. Mm-hmm. If you ask him what belt he has, he goes, I don't know. Like, why? Well, because I'm a student. He doesn't even keep a title. So, and I think to me also, I see a lot. And again, I'm not nobody in particular. And if you think I'm talking about you, I'm not talking about you. But I see a lot of people that will talk about the what, but very few understand the why. And so to me, I look at it and I want to understand the why. You might be able to parrot a technique. I see guys, oh, you got to reload this way. And I go, why? Well, because that's the way we did it in MARSOC. Why?
Right.
Well, because that was the procedure. And now I feel like a 2-year-old. Why? What's the purpose of that? Does that purpose move from that context to my context? Right. When you understand the why, then I think you're way ahead of the game. And so that's what I'm always after. I'm always after not just the what, but the why.
Absolutely. I really appreciate that approach. And it's something that I take to heart in my teaching as well. And so finding out the reason that we're doing things and making sure that it's a good reason, not just some historical reason or some traditional reason, making sure that it's logical, it's scientific, it's reasonable, based on how it is that our body works, whatever the case might be, get a real answer. That's outstanding. Now, folks, those of you that are out there, I can see that we've got some viewers that are in checking out what's going on. I certainly appreciate you. You can go ahead and comment. If you've got questions over on the right-hand side of your screen, you can type in your questions and we can pass those on to John. We'd love to have you interacting and spending some time. Definitely appreciate you being here, but don't forget that this show is an interactive show. Now, John, when you talk about active self-protection, ASP, obviously, it's cool that active self-protection also, ASP is a kind of a venomous snake, that's awesome. But what does active self-protection really mean? What does ASP really mean? Where did that come from? Well, why that name?
Yeah, they work together. My oldest child just kind of worked with me this week, and she was like, whoa, mind blown, because we say the ASP is a colloquial name for the very small North Egyptian cobra. It's a very small snake, but it has a very large bite. And apocryphally, it was known as the snake that Cleopatra used to commit suicide. So when we talk about an asp does not have to be big to be deadly. They are not aggressive animals, but they will not be victimized. So when they're attacked, they use that bite to protect themselves. And because of that, because they're known for being so able to defend themselves with such deadly venom, they're generally left alone and they don't have many natural predators. So that's where that came from. And then the other two things, active self-protection, because I say every word has meaning. It's active. You can't be passive in self-defense. You have to be active. You have to actually go for it. Number one, it's self-protection. Nobody else can protect you in the moment. You have to be able to protect yourself. And then it's protection. It's not aggression. So I'm protecting me and mine. I'm putting up boundaries. I'm not an aggressive person, but I will protect myself and those that I love. So that's where this idea of active self-protection in every word matters. And we also use the acronym ASP for the core and the foundation of what we do. I talk about this all the time. You'll hear me say attitude, skills, and plan. That the foundation of self-defense is attitude. If you don't have the attitude to protect yourself, you won't in the moment. Attitude is king and is first at all times. But if you only have attitude, you got to move on and build skills. You've all seen the person who, thought he was all that in a bag of chips, but when the time came, he didn't have the skills to back up his mouth. The old Top Gun analogy, right? Son, your ego's writing checks your body can't cash, right? And then to use the attitude and the skills effectively, you've got to have a plan. You've got to know where your bright lines are, where your boundaries are. When am I going to get out of there? When am I going to draw my firearm? When am I going to use my pepper spray? When am I going to get my family behind me? Those kind of things. So we talk about active self-protection. I kind of use that acronym ASP because of the kind of the thought of the Egyptian cobra, but then it also works with attitude, skills, and plan to organize my understanding of self-defense.
I like that. I think that that's a really interesting and quality approach. Do you see those as a hierarchy? Do you see them in order as attitude being most important, skills being next, and the plan being third? Or does that just happen to fit in with the way the word ASP goes?
I actually do think that they're not necessarily hierarchical,
Okay.
but attitude is foundational.
Mm-hmm.
If you can have all the skills and plan in the world without that an attitude, they're meaningless. So a plan without skills to back up the plan is meaningless. So I would say attitude is foundational. Skills build on attitude, and plan has to come from attitude and skills. So I would say that perhaps they build on one another, though I wouldn't necessarily call them hierarchical. They're progressive. How's that?
Oh, I like that. I like that. And I can see times when you might be transitioning between one or the other. You know, I guess I would encourage people that if you don't have a proper attitude and you don't have the skills, what you can do right now is start to formulate a plan for many situations. And that's to use the skills that you have, which is Nike defense all the time, no matter what, avoidance, you know, but we really need to get beyond that. We really have to have skills to support the plan.
Well, my first attitude, you see, the reason that I say the way that I do is that first attitude. You see, if you don't have skills and plan, then my attitude is Nike defense, right? Yeah. Now that's an attitude that says, listen, I know I'm a rabbit in the world of self-defense and everything will eat me. And so, I got to be able to run. I'm a deer. Now then the attitude says, but man, that's not very effective. And I got to get better at that because I don't want to be a rabbit. That's a new attitude. Then I got to build the skills to grow some fangs, to grow some claws that I don't have. If I can't run for whatever reason, I always say running is a wonderful defense if you can do it.
Yes.
But if you can't, then you got to have more skills and more plan. So that changes your attitude. I say now, 10 years of study later, which again, 10 years of study is a great start. Okay. It's not, I'm the greatest expert in the world. It's a great start. But before that, I had to be nice to you. Because, dude, I don't want to get in a fight with you because I don't want you to hurt me. Now I get to choose to be kind because, listen, man, I don't want to get in a fight with you because I don't want to hurt you. So that's the same ending result, but a different core and foundation.
And from an ethical and a moral standpoint, I think it's important to consider the idea that probably avoidance is going to be the best case scenario whenever we can. But if you don't have the skills, then maybe avoidance isn't a choice. And then, I think about myself as a father, 2 little kids. I can't just run away. My kids can't run as fast as I can. I may not have the option to avoid in a situation where my children are with me. And so
that's the most important is that it's always context dependent. I mean, exactly. If I'm by myself and I can beat feet, but when I've got my 10-year-old with me, and I failed the first part, I didn't avoid the problem. I couldn't de-escalate it. I can't necessarily escape because I can't keep them with me, or I've got other considerations that I've got to consider. I got to win the fight right here. And that's where having more advanced skills, more tools in the toolbox lets you do those kind of things.
Do you think there's a limit to that toolbox? Do you think that, there's a time when the skills is enough and it's time to then focus on either going back to attitude or doing more plan development? Mindset and tactics is kind of how I look at those.
Well, I think so. I mean, obviously, I know, I have a friend who is in the regiment Army Ranger. Mm-hmm. And as an Army Ranger, I mean, that's his full-time job is to train. And that dude with a rifle is something else. I mean, holy cow, can he put hellfire and damnation on target right now from anything you can imagine. He's way better at that than I am. And of course he should be, because he's the very, very tip of the spear. But in my context, I have neither the time nor the ammo budget nor the training budget to be able to do that. And it's not my biggest concern anyways. I'm not going to assault a compound. I'm not going to kick someone else's door in. So to me, I look at it and say, where am I going to focus my training time? I'm going to focus my training time on likely threats, things that are likely to happen in my context. Honestly, if I lived in a place like South Africa, I would spend my time on different stuff than I spend here in the States. And same thing, if I lived in Brazil, a different, culture, different set of standards. And so having those things in that's where the plan comes in. Wait a minute, what are the likely threats I'm likely to face? What is likely in my world? If I had great mobility challenges because, my hips didn't work right, or I had bad rheumatoid arthritis or something, well, then you got a plan to build the skills. You got to say, with my attitude, my set of circumstances, what skills can I build to make the correct plan for me, for my context?
I like it. I appreciate that approach. Folks, don't forget that if you're watching it, I can see that we've got folks that are in attendance, which is fabulous. I appreciate you being here. Please feel free to chime in. Let us know what your questions are, your comments are, and we'll keep those monitored, and we'll go ahead and pass those on to John. Now, John, you talked about 10 years being a good start. So obviously you've been involved in self-defense training, self-defense, personal protection for yourself and your family for 10 years. You've made it pretty clear that it's not as part of the Army Rangers. So Why don't you tell us a little bit about where your background comes from and what it is that's helped you to learn and now be able to pass on knowledge to folks after that 10 years of study?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've been shooting my whole life. I got pictures of me as a little guy, 4 or 5 years old, with a little 22, hunting with grandpa. So I've been shooting my whole life. I was in the military, and so it's really funny to me that people will ask me sometimes, well, do you have are you law enforcement, or do you have military experience? And I go, well, I've never been in law enforcement, but I was in the military. And then that's just, oh, great. Okay, lovely. He's qualified. Guys, I operated a nuclear reactor for the Navy for 8 years. Okay. I made hot water the hard way. That in no way qualified me with anything defensive related. Okay. And anybody in the Navy can tell you my primary job was I was a janitor. I cleaned things. And when I wasn't cleaning things, I made a hot rock. And the hot rock made hot water made steam turned turbines and made the boat go. So that was no self-defense whatsoever. When I got out of the military, I went to grad school. I'm a pastor. I pastor a church full time. And I was working in a video game store when the Xbox 360 came out, and the PlayStation 3. And there was stories of people getting mugged for them, people getting killed even in stores. Happens every generation, any valuable stuff. Same thing today, people getting killed for the iPhone 6S, whatever. But I just said, no more. I'm not going to do that. So that's when I started. That was early 2006. I started carrying firearm, went and got qualified, got a CCW. Honestly, when I got my CCW, looking back today, I can tell you that gun functioned as a lucky rabbit's foot. It was my magic talisman to ward away danger, because if I'd had to use it, I'd have been in big trouble. And I realized that pretty quick. Like, okay, this CCW class was great. It taught me some legal requirements. It taught me about kind of thinking about when I'd use a gun. But gosh, man, I put 20 shots on paper.
Right.
And can I do that from the holster and get it out and get it on there quick? So I started training. And then very quickly I realized that a lot of fights start at bad breath distances, and a whole lot more fights I use my hands than I use a firearm. So my son had been training in martial arts since he was a little guy, since he was like 4 years old.
Okay.
And he'd bug me, Papa, you got to come train. You got to come train. And I was in grad school at the time, and I was working a full-time job, and I was working a part-time job,
right?
Trying to pay bills. I was pastoring a little church as my part-time job. I was working a full-time job and going to seminary. And I was like, son, I can't, I'm in seminary. He's like, what about when you're done? Oh, okay, fine, buddy. I will. You bet. At my graduation ceremony, my little guy at almost 7 years old tugs on my graduation robes. Right there, I am in full regalia. Tugs on my robes and says, "Are you coming to Kempo on Tuesday, Dad? You promised." And I went, "Oh, I did, didn't I?" Okay, I'll be there. And I found I fell in love with it. So that was May of 2006. I started studying Kempo.
Okay.
I hope this year, well, probably not in 2015, hopefully early 2016. I'm working on my requirements for my black belt in Kempo right now. Every art's different, as Mr. Miyagi say, belt mean no need rope for keeping up pants, right?
Right.
In our art, what we do, a black belt's a huge deal. And so it takes anywhere from 8 to 15 years of study to earn. So hopefully this year I'll get it, but that's what I've been doing. I try to get at least twice a week on the mat. My goal this year is I want to get at least 30 hours of professional firearms instruction this year where I'm the student, where I'm learning, and I want to get at least 100 hours under instruction in empty-handed fighting. So I'm on track for both of those. Do need to get one more handgun class in this year to make it happen.
Very good. That's excellent. So you've got that background both in the firearms industry and shooting, and then you also have moved into the hand-to-hand area, and that's great. For those folks that don't know, tell us a little bit about what Kempo is.
Oh, man, the word means nothing. I got to be real with you, because there's so much of it, and it's so spread out. It's literally a meaningless word. If you have a context here, not everybody does, I get that. But if you are, if you have any contact with Christianity, it's almost like calling someone a Baptist. That means nothing. You got to continue to ask questions. Like, what does that mean? Like, what kind, right? So, Kempo, you can say originated with the Chinese. You see some people spell it with an M, K-E-M-P-O, some with an N, K-E-N-P-O. There's several strands of that. One of the bigger proponents here from the 50s on, a guy named Ed Parker, and Ed Parker brought Kempo to America. People know that name, Ed Parker Sr., and that's the strand in which kind of I study. Mr. Parker, vast respect for him, an incredible, transcendent martial artist. He died in 1990, though. So 25 years have gone on since then, and so the art has evolved in 25 years, and it's evolved in several families. I kind of study within a family within that that is very unique. I got lucky, Paul. I mean, that's just the reality of things. I started studying with a guy. My teacher's name is Lawrence Robinson. He currently wears a 6th degree. He just got his 6th degree black belt. I wouldn't fight the guy unless you gave me a baseball bat and 3 licks before we got started. But a kind man with a great heart and a self-defense core, not a competition core, not a formality or tradition core, but a self-defense core. So we kind of now, we talk about the fact that we're descended from Ed Parker. We talk about the fact that a lot of what we do looks like some of what Kempo does. But really now we're kind of calling it a universal martial arts system.
Okay.
Trying to kind of recognize that the word Kempo doesn't have as much meaning as it used to. I'm trying to convince my teacher's teacher. His name's Skip Hancock, and Skip is, he's just something else. A kind man with an incredible knowledge. I'm trying to convince him to start calling it Universal Martial Arts System. We're just shortening that to UMAS. So far, no dice. So there's where Kempo is. It's a self-defense system. The base of Kempo, if you talk about like the base of Taekwondo is staying at distance and kicks. The base of Jiu-Jitsu is manipulations and position. The base of Aikido is using your opponent's energy against you. I would say that the base of Kempo is maneuvering with your feet and using your hands to defend yourself.
Okay. That gives a good picture right there of what it is that you might be learning. So you're going to be talking about a lot of moving and striking.
Yep. And I want to be able to win whatever fight I'm in. So if that guy's outside and I have to strike, great, I can do that. If he moves in close and I got to move into a manipulation phase, that's where my jiu-jitsu friends go, oh, you start doing jiu-jitsu. And I go, oh, okay, call it whatever you want. I don't care. Right. Or, oh, look, that was a great judo throw. And they throw this Japanese word. Oh, that's a umiyagi. I don't even know if that's a judo throw, but you know what I mean? That's a umami.
A Nissan. He did a Nissan.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And I was like, I did? Great. Lovely. That's fantastic. Or the Shotokan guys are like, oh, that's this thing and this part. Oh, great, man. Whatever works,
What we need is realism that fits in a context, that fits in, as you would say, into the attitude, skills, in the plan.
Exactly.
And that's what it is that you're finding in Kempo. And I'm glad that's working out for you. And I'm glad that it's a self-defense focus. There's a lot of martial arts out there, as you mentioned, that are tradition focused, that teach discipline, which are incredibly valuable lessons. They're very important to learn. But to think that is also teaching you self-defense might not be intellectually honest. And so I certainly appreciate where you're coming from with that idea of a self-defense aspect to your training. That's very important. What do you say we shift gears and kind of head back towards ASP a little bit? Does that sound good to you?
Sure, great for me. Whatever's best for you, man.
Awesome. Videos, as we mentioned, are every place. You know, I do a lot of video work myself. You know, I've got this studio that I'm kind of working on. It's in the basement. It's not my mom's basement, but it is the basement. And put out a lot of video work, but my video work is very different from yours. And the video work that you do is very different from what it is that I've seen just about any place else out on the interwebs. What is it that makes Asp's videos unique?
So it's really funny. I feel like, first of all, it's pretty funny. You're down in the basement, right? It puts the lotion on its skin or it gets the hose again, right?
Right, exactly.
But I didn't mean to do this, but I kind of created a market segment with the narrated self-defense videos.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't my intent. So where did that happen? Honestly, so if I put my cards face up on the table, it was an accident. Facebook, I first started the Facebook page for active self-protection because I was trying to get some students into class. I was trying to get more handgun students for my NRA pistol classes, right? I have NRA certs in pistol and all that. I don't teach, you know, high level kicking doors, but I can teach regular people to use a firearm effectively to defend themselves against a bad guy. So I was trying to get more students to class. After a while, I said, you know, man, I've got to run this effectively. And so then I started playing games, and I've kind of broken Facebook at this point. They don't quite know what to do with me. But that started with memes, with pictures. For a while there, Facebook was huge on pictures, you know,
right.
And so I made a bunch of those, and I started putting those out and really putting some work into them. Then that started to fade a little bit. And I forget where it was, somebody sent me a video or something. I uploaded it to the page, and it was, I remember the first one was goofy. It was a commercial, and I forget who the commercial was for, but it was biathlon, you know, and you know, biathlon, it's like skiing and shooting, right?
Right.
And it was a silly one though, and it was a guy, and he skis into the shooting station, and he, you know, takes his rifle off, and he starts it and gets a shot, boom, boom, and he starts hitting targets. Then it cuts to another guy coming with his skiing, and the guy turns and shoots at him, and like drops him there. And you know, how to make biathlon fun is what the code was. And I was like, oh, that was great, and it went crazy viral. Like people really loved it.
Sure.
Interesting. So then I started doing self-defense ones. People send me surveillance video of people getting mugged or stabbed or whatever. And so then I put a couple of them up, and then I thought, well, let me type a couple of lessons in the description. Hey guys, think about this and that and the other thing. Well, where the rest of it came from was I bought a MacBook Pro so that I could, you know, move and do stuff. And I have a subscription to Adobe's Creative Cloud. I use Adobe's Creative Suite.
Okay.
I was using it for Photoshop for the memes. Well, I imported one of these videos to their video editing tool, Premiere, and it just so happens by total fluke, I figured out that I could narrate using the onboard microphone on my MacBook. It changed everything, because I was like, well, why don't I just do a play-by-play? Let's see what happens if I do a play-by. So I did a play-by-play, and people went nuts for them. I mean, they just were like, holy cow, this is a whole different world. So then it's been an evolution from there. If you go back, you know, if you go on the videos tab on the Facebook page and you scroll back, we've been doing them almost exactly a year now. And if you scroll back to last October, and you can see, and I look at some of those now, and I go, I need to redo those. They're
right.
Very professional.
It hurts, doesn't it?
Yeah. But you go back and you look, and at first it was just a narration, and then it was, okay, now I'll kind of go back through it a second time and kind of stop in places. And to where we are today, I'm still evolving, still trying to make it more professional, but not lose the feel, you know, not lose who I am. And what makes them different, I think, is and I have seen a couple of places now that are trying to do the same thing or something very, very similar. And you know what? Imitation is a sincerest form of flattery and all that. And I don't mind that, because I think what's unique about them, and I want to be careful how I say this, Paul, it's not the medium, it's the perspective. My point of view is unique. My approach to self-defense is unique. And I don't hear people doing what I'm doing because they don't have the same perspective on self-defense that I do. So, you know, I have a perspective that says I want to escape and I want to avoid every fight that I can. And quite frankly, I know a lot of gun guys that honestly are kind of excited to get in a gunfight, that they really hope one day they can. Doesn't it? It does, and they kind of really hope they can get in a gunfight. And I look at it and go, "Oh my goodness, I never want to get in a gunfight if I can possibly help it." Joe Rogan not long ago, I'm a UFC fan as well. And Joe Rogan says, and that guy's, he's a bad man. I mean, he's an announcer, a commentator, but that guy can fight. And he says, man, I am scared to death to get in a fight because I know what can happen. And I feel that.
I seem to remember, speaking of UFC, I seem to remember there was a UFC fighter, maybe in Brazil, this was, where, in a gas station, he started some problems and, ended up being laid out with a 2x4 to the back of the head.
Yeah.
Which isn't necessarily part of what happens daily in UFC. And violence is that way.
Yeah, if they added a random knife like tied to the wall on the cage, there'd probably be a little different approach. I really value it for what it is. It's competition though. It's not self-defense. So I think what makes the active self-protection videos unique is the way that we approach them. Some people love them. Of course, everybody's got haters, but I think that we've created a unique.
Do you still have me, John? John, it looks like we might have lost you. So what I'd like you to do, it looks like you dropped out. If you could jump back in on that link, John, that would be awesome. Until then, folks, I'm going to go ahead and chat with you. I do see that we have some folks that are still on with us. I'd love to have you throw in your questions. Now is the perfect time to do so. I'm going to go ahead and grab a link here real quick and make sure that I get that back to John so that he knows that he's dropped. He may be still chit-chatting away. You know how you get dropped on a cell phone call and you don't even know that you're dropped yet. So we'll send him a message. I hope you folks are doing well. And we'll see if we can get John back on. We've got some more questions to ask him, so I'm certainly looking forward to continuing to be able to chat with John. Let me go ahead and get myself back up on screen. The next thing that I want to talk with John about is the fact that the videos that active self-protection posts are violent. And there's always that line that has to be walked between how do we say this, between being gratuitous about violence and yet providing those lessons. And so if we can get John back on the call here, we will hopefully be able to ask him that question. I'm curious as to what questions you folks have, and I certainly do appreciate you tuning in. While we're waiting for John, I'm going to go ahead and bump up our little end of the road spot for mag holder to right now. The mag holder is something that I've been carrying my magazine in on my belt. And this is actually one of the old mag holders. So this is first generation stuff. There have been some solid improvements since this time to make it even better. And yet here I am still carrying the old tried and true mag holder that I've had for my Glock 17 magazine. I've probably been carrying this for 5 years now. Maybe that's not right. Maybe it's 4 years, but it's been a heck of a long time. The thing's in almost new condition. What's key about it is it keeps the magazine exactly where it is that I need it. If you think about where it is that my body lines up when I need to reload my firearm, if you look at the angles right here, everything is just perfect for the magazine to come out and then right up into the gun. That makes the mag holder outstanding from an intuitive standpoint, with working well with what it is that my body does naturally. And I very much appreciate about that mag holder is it's right there ready to go and reload. Yet at the same time, it holds the magazine securely in place. And being able to have that magazine right where it needs to be, that is good news. I don't want that magazine to disappear someplace. I don't want it to end up on the floor and get kicked across the store or whatever it might be. That would be a major problem. It's a concealed carry handgun and a concealed reload, a concealed magazine. That's what we're shooting for. So this mag holder is an outstanding option. It is inexpensive, yet at the same time, it's durable, it's functional, and I really do appreciate it. You can check out Mag Holder. If you're looking for something, regardless of what kind of firearm you carry, there's a mag holder out there for you. You can head to www.magholder.com. Again, that's www.magholder.com. And again, lightweight, low bulk, secure, easy to reload, a really good quality product. And one of the great things is the people at Mag Holder are top-notch folks as well. Well, it doesn't look like we've had any success at bringing John back on. Let me check Facebook messages and see if I've gotten any messages. Oh, I got a message from John here. His internet's goofy. Okay, so he's resetting his modem, so we're going to go ahead and continue to stall here for a couple of moments. Now, folks, remember that I would love to be interacting with you. So if you've got questions, right now, go ahead, type in that question in the question bar, and we can get that question passed on to John. In the future, if you've got questions, you can reach out to me. You can find me by email, and you can send emails to paul@safetysolutionsacademy.com. I'd certainly love to hear from you. That would be outstanding. You can email me comments, questions, concerns, topics for future shows are a great idea. Guests that you'd like to see interviewed on the show. We're going to keep the show primarily in an interview format for the majority of the time. And, I want to be interviewing the folks that you want to be talking to. I want to interview the folks. Hey, maybe we got John back here. Let me know if you can. Hey, John, how you doing, buddy?
Good grief. Please forgive me. I don't have any idea what happened.
Don't worry about it, John. This is live. I mean, that's what happens, right, brother?
We're professionals.
I got in a pitch for the folks at Mag Holder, so now I won't need to do that at the end. And so we got a nice little mid-roll ad in there. I've been talking to folks about being able to contact Safety Solutions Academy and my email address. We're ticking off the business list just in a little bit of a different order. So I'm glad you made it back, man. I'm glad
we are professionals, folks. Trust us, we're doing well.
I don't know about professional, but high-level amateur, maybe. It's a good possibility. So,
well, I'm back. How about that? Jeez,
it's awesome. I'm glad to have you back. We were getting ready to make a transition. I think it's just a good idea to just transition right into the next question. And I kind of already prepped the audience for this, and it's not necessarily an easy question to ask. And I believe, if I understand correctly, it's something that you've wrestled with from time to time, but. Obviously, we're talking about personal protection. We're talking about self-defense, which means we're talking about violence. And you're sharing surveillance video, cell phone video of actual real violence and commenting. And obviously, the purpose is to learn. But I'm guessing that there are some people that don't appreciate the lessons. Have there been some struggles related to making choices about whether or not you should be publishing certain videos, how you should publish them? Has that been a struggle for you at all?
It has, for sure. I think that there are times, it depends. There are times where some videos you look at and you say, okay, is there enough value here? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Is there enough here? One that I really struggled with was the Roanoke, Virginia on-air shootings. That one was a real struggle, especially the one from the murderer's perspective.
Right.
And I was sent that video. Most of the videos that I do now get sent to me by my fans. And I thought about it. He sent it to me. I downloaded it off of the murderer's Twitter before it got deleted. And I thought about it long and hard, and I prayed about it because, that's my core. I serve an audience of one. And I ended up deciding to post it with some significant lessons. I typed in, I didn't do the full audio narration like I normally do. Instead, I went old school and put some lessons in the description. Mm-hmm. And the reason I did was because I said, look, this is going to get posted 50,000 times to social media today. And at the very least, maybe I can enter the fray and hope to give some redemption, at least a little something to these senseless murderers and to honor the memory of these people by doing something. It was controversial. I had a tiger by the tail for about 72 hours, quite frankly. you know, and I tried to be really, and my whole admin team, I literally, that one post was seen about 9 million times, which is, I mean, even for us is unprecedented. And I would say, I don't know, I'd say 85% of the comments were positive, 5% were unintelligible, and 10% were frustrated and negative. And I tried to honor that, you know, and I tried to say, listen, I understand this isn't going to be for everyone. I recognize that this is. I got actually my web host. My web host, one of my best friends, one of the elders in my church, is my web guy, and he. Somebody went through from our Facebook page to my website, from my website to my web host, because he's got a real small button on the bottom. Sure. From that to his about page to call him and threaten him with bodily harm. That's pretty far.
Wait. They were frustrated that you published a violent video, and so they threatened your web host with violence.
Yes, correct. It's an interesting ethical approach. So and people were frustrated. You know, some people sent me some very pointed private messages. I got a few of those. Like I say, about 85% positive, I would say, you know, 10% negative, 5% unintelligible. And so there's always that, you know. I honestly think that one was so controversial because, number one, it was very, very fresh. Number two, it's close. You know, this is here. When I post a video, all right, I don't do well with political correctness. When I post a video from Brazil, it's okay if it's brown people. But here in the States, you post a video of a pretty blonde woman getting murdered. That's a different story. So unfortunate, but true.
Well, it's an interesting video, John, because the outcome is horrific,
terrible,
and the idea of being in the point of view of the person creating that horror is in itself terrifying in some ways. Yet when you look at the videos, some of the videos that get posted, from a true violence standpoint, it wasn't gratuitously gory.
Nope.
Now again, don't think for a second that I'm not saying that the outcome was horrific. It was absolutely horrific. But there are many other videos where the violence is much more apparent in it.
Absolutely true. In fact, I would say the one thing that I struggled with on that video that I had my entire admin team. I have about 18 admins who help me on my Facebook page. And literally the entire admin team babysat that post all day. That post had about 80,000 comments on it.
Wow.
In a day. And it was, I mean, I would moderate 600 comments. I'd hit the refresh button. There would be 1,000 new comments. And so we were all doing that all day long. And one of the big ones that we got there was a whole bunch of folks going, oh, it's fake. And the reason that they say, oh, it's fake is because they believed what Hollywood says about handgun use. He shot her 3 times and she didn't just fall.
Right.
My canned response was, go watch 10 of the videos on the page. And when people get shot with a handgun, they live a long time. Not always, but regularly enough that that's utterly to be believed.
One of the videos that's still up on top of your page is the Sao Paulo, Brazil, where the homeless man tried to rescue, and I shouldn't say tried, he did rescue
that woman
held at gunpoint. And he unfortunately was shot multiple times. And it's very clear that with the proper mindset, with that proper attitude, as you would call it, there are things that can be done in that time.
Yeah, he was shot, I mean, dead in the chest. And you can see it after about 15 seconds, you can see he finally starts bleeding from the front. That's one of the big myths is, you know, you hit something and you get this big blood spray immediately. No, it's not what happens. The bullet's going this way. So the bleeding doesn't start for a few seconds and you don't see it for a while. You may not see it if he's wearing loose clothes, you know, you may never see it. He did, and he still was up and functional for about 20-25 seconds after being shot, center of mass, mortally wounded. And so going back to the Roanoke video, really, it wasn't graphic. There was no, from the perspective of, there wasn't any gore. It's not like, you know, he blew her head open or anything. I have posted those. Those have gotten me some. I've posted just a couple of them with some significant warnings. I put these big, graphic warning. Watch if you're squeamish, don't watch this one.
Right.
Of the real effect of being shot. See somebody shot with a rifle and what that really does. You go, whoa. But that one wasn't all that graphic. It was just morally repugnant. It's one of those that shocks the conscience such that it causes a great reaction.
No doubt about it. That was an absolutely shocking and horrific video from an emotional standpoint. I think that was the biggest aspect of it. And so, this kind of leads us to a place where you have a unique position to be able to comment to some degree, John. And I kind of want to head down a road here. When I start talking about moral and ethical, it leads to the spiritual world. And as a pastor, your full-time job is you pastor a church, and you're heavily involved in the personal defense world. How does that balance out for you? I mean, obviously that comes to be helpful when you need to make a decision about what video gets posted, what video doesn't, those kinds of things. But some people see those two worlds as conflicting worlds. Tell me about that.
And again, I mean, when you're getting attacked on both sides, that's to me where I want to be, because I feel like I'm in a good spot there. And in the Christian world, there is especially in some strains of evangelicalism, there is a strong pacifist bent. In the Roman Catholic Church, I really I'm not Catholic, but I like a lot of what I see in Pope Francis. He does have a strong pacifistic bent. And I say everyone has to live out their conscience. I have friends who say I could never take a life to defend myself. And I go, oh, okay, just recognize that for what it is. I've done a lot on this. I got on my personal blog, not on ASP, but on my personal blog, I have a 4-part series on Christianity and self-defense. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's contradictory. I don't think they're contradictory worlds. In fact, my understanding of self-defense comes because I believe that humans are uniquely valuable. Because that's a faith commitment. That's a spiritual commitment. I believe humanity is made in the image of God, and uniquely made in the image of God in a way that no other creature is. And so we are the most valuable thing ever created. A human life, you can't replace it. You can't recreate it. Only God can do that. So it's worth protecting. And that's why I always say, and I maintain this, we talk about it a lot, shoot to stop the threat. My goal is never to kill somebody. My goal is to stop them from hurting me. I stop the threat. Now, if he or she, if that attacker chose to attack me, and they die, then they caused their death by attacking me. Because again, it's self-protection, not self-aggression. I'm just protecting me and mine. I also think, there's strong biblical precedent for self-defense. That goes back, if you look at, not in the same context, you go back to the 10 Commandments, the Decalogue, you shall not murder. Exodus chapter 20. You keep going in those same commandments, not in the Big 10, but in that same context, Exodus chapter 22, verse 2, God talks there about somebody breaking into your home. And if someone is struck while he's in the act, if he's struck such that he dies in the commission of that, then there's no blood guiltiness. That's okay. But if he leaves and the sun rises on him, in other words, he's left, the threat is over, and then you go kill him, that's vengeance. And God says, there's blood guiltiness there. So, Exodus 22, you go to the book of Nehemiah, when they're rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, and Sanballat and Tobiah threaten the people of God. Nehemiah calls them all together and says, hey, strap your swords on, men. It's time to defend your families. Right. And they do a great job of that. One of my important verses for me is Luke 11:21. In Luke chapter 11, Jesus is talking about a lot of stuff, and he's talking about spiritual issues. But he uses an aphorism that he uses approvingly. And that aphorism says, when a strong man, fully armed, guards his own home, his possessions are safe. Now, he's using that in a spiritual sense. Okay, he's talking to the people about demon possession and spiritual truth and being right with God. Nevertheless, he uses an everyday analogy of that. And he doesn't say, no, we don't do that. He just uses it. Well, that's something that everybody would understand. Guys, when you're armed well and you're defending your home's safe. You know that, I know that, it's cool. So he doesn't disapprove of it. And then in Luke chapter 22, verse 36, when Jesus is about to be betrayed, he knows that. He knows it's coming, and he's telling them it's coming. Guys, I'm going away. You're not going to have me anymore. So he harkens back to the first time he sent them out was in Luke chapter 9. He sent them out on a mission, and he told them at that point, I don't want you to take anything with you. Don't take a money belt. Don't take food. Don't take nothing. You depend on the provision of the people I send you to. And he says to him, he says, remember the last time we did that? And they're like, yeah. And he said, did you lack anything? Nope, everything was great. Okay, understand that. Now this time, I want you to take a money belt. I want you to put an extra pair of sandals in your bag. And I want you, the one who has no sword, to sell his cloak and buy one. Now that sword that he's talking about there is not a hunting implement. It's not a cutting tool. It's not a kitchen tool. It's the word that he uses is the word for the short sword that the Roman army carried. It was the sword that the Roman army used to conquer the known world. It was, not to say too much, it was the assault weapon of its day. The assault rifle of its day, the Greek Machaira, for anybody interested in that. And they come back and say, well, Lord, we only have two. We only have two of them for the 12 of us. And he was like, well, that's enough. Okay. We got what we got. So that, to me, and when I look at that, it says to me, not everybody has to, because he says, look, Lord, you told us to go all do that, but only two of us have. And he's like, okay, that's enough. So to me, that's authorization. Mm-hmm. Those are against brigands and bandits. The early Christian church, I don't think, their thought wasn't rising up against the man, quite frankly, but protection against bad guys. And so I certainly think from a biblical perspective, that's perfectly allowable.
So really, it seems like what you would suggest to somebody that might be struggling with these issues would be to go to your religion itself, mm-hmm. and find out what it is that your faith says about that. What is that?
I certainly think that's the way that I would go. As a pastor, I go to the book. To me, the Bible is the standard of faith and practice. So that's where my authority is, not necessarily my religious leaders, but Jesus himself. But yeah, going to talk to and research your own faith and your own faith commitments, and say, what does that mean? And can I protect myself? I think there's a strong tradition within Judaism of self-defense in some circles. So that's great. Most strands of Christianity, not within the Quaker community, not within the Mennonite community, but most of the rest do. Obviously, I think that one of the significant things that we have to consider is, so whatever faith community that you're in, where does that leave you morally? Do you have the moral obligation? Do you have the moral compunction to defend yourself? Can you do so? Not only do you think that your religious convictions matter, but can you emotionally handle that? And I think those are interconnected things. For me and for mine, the Charleston church shootings were huge. They said, that guy didn't care. He was trying to incite a race war. That's what he was trying to do. He was trying to kill people and incite a race war, and he did it in a church. New Life Community Church in Colorado, 2007, Jeannie Assam, she's famous for stopping a mass murderer in church. Church isn't a safe place. I wish it was. I wish there was like a magic force field that Jesus put around the building so that when you were there, it was like bad guy repellent. Right. If you could have some like snail bait that you could put around, bad guy bait, that they'd croak on their way into the building or something. But it's just not the case. I pray every Sunday when we're going to gather for worship. Before I leave the house, some of my prayers for our gathered worship is, Lord, protect us, keep us safe. Don't let any evil come close to us, spiritually, emotionally, or physically. But Lord, if you use me to protect us, make my aim true and my hand fast. Thankfully, I've never had to do that in my context. I've been a pastor for 11 years. In 11 years, during a gathered worship assembly, I've only had 3 times where I've been a little concerned where we might get to an escalation issue. Those weren't mass murder kind of issues. Those were domestic violence situations,
right.
Unstable people, those kind of things. But I do think the two that I don't really align with, I don't align with the pacifistic approach, because I don't think that God does. I also don't align with the praise the Lord and pass the ammunition, kill them all and let God sort them out kind of crowd. Instead, I just want to protect those that I love. So that's where I'm at.
How did you get there? Or is that where you've always been?
No, I mean, so I didn't grow up as a Christian. Okay. I grew up worshiping at the church of Al, Frank, and Dan. So, you know, if you're a football fan, you know, they announced Monday Night Football through the 80s and into the 90s. I became a Christian in 98 and as an adult, 22. And I didn't know where I stood on that. Then when all the events kind of started for me in 06 with the Xbox 360 coming out, people getting mugged, that's when I really had to think, gosh, man, what does this mean? So that's when I really started researching and really started trying to come to some understanding and say, okay, wait, what is this? Now for me, my faith commitment is stronger than my defense commitment. If I earnestly believe that God would rather have me die than protect myself, then I would die with joy. It wouldn't bother me. You know, the history of Christian martyrs is strong, but that came from a lot of research. And obviously, I mean, I have a big toolbox of research, right? I have a 96-hour master's degree in the Bible.
Right.
You know, people say, oh, you have a master's degree. Most master's degrees are like a 30-hour program, you know, 30 credit program. A master's of divinity is 96. So I have a big toolbox to do that study. And a lot of other guys do too. And some of them disagree with me, but that's where my study started. It probably was 3 or 4 months of really digging in and studying everything I could and reading broadly, reading from people who disagreed with me, to come to some understanding of what I think the text says. Very good.
So that leads me to the question, and I don't know that there's even really an answer to this question. But the question is what does a person do if they find themselves in an environment where their spiritual life and their self-defense life, if you want to call it that, don't match up, where maybe they find themselves in a church that doesn't support that idea of self-defense, yet that becomes something vitally important to them?
I say in anything with related to the Christian faith in particular. Okay, I'm not an expert. I have affinity for my Jewish friends. I know very little of Islam or any other religion outside of that. But within the Christian tradition, I say there are majors, there are primary issues, there are secondary issues, and there are tertiary issues. On the primaries, I think I'm willing to fight and die for the primaries. The big ones. Now, those to me, there are only 4. None of them have to deal with anything self-defense related.
Okay.
The secondary ones, to me, could define, is this a good place for me? Is this a good fit for me? Is this a community that I resonate with? Now, for some people, there's a lot of things in the primaries and very little in the secondaries. The tertiaries are stuff that like, we have personal preference, but who cares? To me, that's stuff like, what kind of music do you play in the worship service? What color is the carpet?
Right.
You know, what do people wear to church? I could care less. The secondary stuff, that might fit in there. You might say, you know, you got to decide, is this a secondary or a tertiary issue? Self-defense. If self-defense is a secondary issue, well, that could be a time where you say, listen, I'm not saying that this is a faith-defining issue, but it might be an issue that I have to find a place that I am in comfortable agreement with the leadership in order to fellowship here. And I have had people leave my congregation over my self-defense views. And I honor that. I mean, I recognize that. There's here in Phoenix is a weird town, man. Arizona is one of the least churched, one of the least religious states in the union. Okay. And yet we have churches on every stinking street corner, man. You can't swing a dead cat without hitting a church building in Arizona. So there's a bajillion options, man.
Right.
Go somewhere that you find that's good for you. And in most towns, I think that's the case as well. So if you go, well, I'm in this tradition that, or my elder board or my priest or my pastor is just really violent, really adamantly against self-defense. What do I do? Well, I mean, at some point, if you talk the talk and talk the talk and talk the talk with them, and they won't budge, then you got to decide if it's a big enough deal. And
Right.
it might not be. You might go, no, I see so much else good here. I see so much else of God here. I'll put up with it and just disagree. Listen, I'm the pastor of my church, and there's stuff I disagree with. I mean, let's be real. I don't control everything, right? So There's some stuff that I look at it and I go, that's not what I want to do, but it's out of my control. Whatever. I'm just going to let it go. So, or you might go, if they go, no, you're not allowed to bring a firearm, for instance, into the congregation. And they pat you down every week or something. I don't know, and you go, no, this is a huge deal to me. Well, that might be something where you go, no, I want to gather for worship, but I got to do so in a way that I feel responsible. And so I'm going to make that a part of my search, and you go find a place.
There you go.
At the same time, I mean, I have family in California. My CCW permit don't work in California yet. Please, Lord, may Peruta hold up and may national reciprocity come our way someday. But not right now. And when that's the case, I'm a law-abiding guy. I know plenty of people like, well, I don't care. I'd rather be tried by 12 than carried by 6. I don't want to be tried by any.
Right.
And I don't carry in California. I leave them at home. And so what do? Well, I use everything else at my disposal. And I live a responsible, morally upright as best I can. I mean, I'm a sinner like anybody else. And I just do the best I can with what I have.
Very good. Very good. When we look at the videos that you post on ASP, you've been, do you know how many videos you have posted now?
I think we're right about to hit 400.
Whew. So you've been at this on virtually a daily basis for more than a year.
Every day, 9 a.m. Pacific, I post a new narrated self-defense video. For a while there, I was posting them 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. new. And then, it's better to burn out than rust out, I guess. But at some point I went, no, I'm going to die doing this. So one a day, every day, 7 days a week, 9 a.m. Pacific.
So when you look at those videos, I would imagine that you're starting to see trends. You probably started to see trends a long time ago. Mm-hmm. If there were one or two things that you could point out to folks that you see regularly in videos that people could have done to either avoid or more successfully control the outcome of the event, what would those things be?
There are two things that I think are kind of unique to my perspective, things that maybe I've brought to the self-defense community. The first one of those is transitional spaces. And I use that phrase, a transitional space is anywhere that allows for easy ambush and easy escape by bad guys where they might find, and they're likely to find valuables. I also call them watering holes. If you ever watched Wild Kingdom or whatever, you see, lions are going to wait around the watering hole because there's valuable stuff there. They can hide in the bushes and jump out of ambush and then get away. So a transitional space is anywhere that is a choke point for people, mm-hmm. that allows for easy ambush in one way or another and allows for easy escape. So things like convenience stores are huge transitional spaces, gas stations, because it's designed to get people in and out in a hurry. And since there's a lot of people around, you can hide in obscurity as just another person. So the ambush is there and the easy escape is there and there are valuables there, transitional space. I tell people getting in and out of your car. The second your car comes to a stop, you're going to get out of the car or get into the car. It's a transitional space. You're transitioning from out to in, and that's a place where you're going to stop, where a bad guy can ambush you because most people are paying no attention whatsoever and then get away from you quickly. So one of the huge trends that I see is the danger of those transitional spaces and times. And so I really encourage people to pay more attention then. Not that you have to get uber paranoid, but just to pay attention, just to know what's going on around you as you approach one, as you're in one, and as you leave, so that you're not the victim that gets chosen. You fail that first interview. The second one Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to look at it, John, is to look at it as failing the interview, to never even know that you were about to be in that situation.
Right.
That's awareness and avoidance at its key, because that bad guy, that predator at the watering hole, looks and says, nah, not this one.
Right. And that one's too much of a fight. Remember, bad guys are not looking for fights. They're looking for victims.
Right.
They want victims. And just like in the wild, most lions will not fight a gazelle. If they get kicked in the teeth, they don't want to get injured. They're very worried about getting injured, and so they get out of there. Same thing with most bad guys. You start fighting them, you fail that first interview, they go, that one could be problems. I'll just pick another one that won't be problems.
Right.
The second one, in the fight, I use an acronym or a little mnemonic, a memory device that I call the 5 Ds, and that's dealing with an armed opponent, whether they have a gun, a knife, a stick, whatever. If I'm not armed, or I don't have the time to get to my firearm, it's in close proximity. We just did this last night at Real Encounters classes. And I've seen again and again and again in a fight with a bad guy who's armed, if I have to go hands-on with him, that those 5 Ds matter. And we talk about deflect, dominate, distract, disarm, disable. Now, Krav Maga likes a similar thing. They don't do the last one. They don't do the disable. They do redirect, control, attack, takeaway. They call RCAT. Very similar concept. I'm a preacher, yo. I like my, alliterated lists. So what I saw, and I didn't make the 5 Ds and then go, okay, let's try to fit self-defense into it. After watching hundreds, and for every video I produce, I probably watch 10. Mm-hmm. People send them to me and I watch them and I go, man, it's just, I'd have a hard time bringing that lesson out. That in that order, when people do them, they live, or they have a much greater chance of living. When they don't, when they skip them, when they miss one, they have a much higher tendency to not make it through the encounter, to lose. So, for instance, somebody's pointing a gun at me. My first thing is to get the muzzle off my line, right? I don't want that muzzle pointed at me. So deflect is always first, because if I try to disarm him and yet that muzzle's pointed at me, he pulls trigger and I lose. When we talk about dominate, I want to either dominate that force multiplier he's got, would be my least choice, or is the hand with the multiplier, the arm with the multiplier, or the whole person. I want to start dominating the situation so he's not in control. Distract is, I got to give him something else to think about, whether I poke him in the eye, I elbow him in the head, I kick him in the groin, something that gets him thinking about other than, oh no, I got to hold on to this gun or whatever. It was amazing to me last night. We were doing this in encounters classes, and I was working with a guy, big guy, man, 20-year law enforcement veteran named Chad, really nice guy. Had him hold a gun on me, and I go, okay, Officer Chad, hold the gun on me. And I go, do you think I can take the gun away from you? He said, I don't think you can. I'm much bigger than I am, much stronger than I am. We're in a training environment. Everybody's geared up appropriately. He was wearing a cup, but I grabbed that gun and just kicked him in the groin as I did. And it was amazing how easy he let the stupid gun go.
Right.
Why? Oh, Joe, it just scared me, man. Well, amazing, right? And he was wearing a cup, so it's not like he was in pain. Then disarm, you want to get that away from him, and then disable, which means stopping the threat. So those are, when I see those happen in defensive encounters, I don't even have to look for them anymore. I go, if I watch the guy do it, I go, watch. If you want to go back and look, he's done the 5 Ds. And because we've seen it enough times. And when he dies, it's usually, I'll tell you where he gets stuck. He either gets stuck in dominate, he can't dominate for some reason or another, mm-hmm. or he tries to get in a 50-50 fight. He doesn't use any distract, and then he loses the dominance fight and loses a fight. It's almost always what happens.
Interesting. So you see in those videos the distraction, and again, things like an eye gouge, things like an elbow to the face and knee to the groin. Those are the distractions to try and bring a large amount of overwhelming sensation. Is that the idea? An overwhelming sensation to the attacker? Yeah,
we talk about knocking our attacker out of time. So, mm-hmm. When he's in the here and now, he can fight me for equal control. The second I really bring something, now that could be, it could be an eye poke, a strike that does significant damage. It could be me knocking him over, using some judo skills or whatever to take him down. What that does is then now he's not thinking about now, he's thinking about what just happened. So he's in the past. He's out of the present. So the second he's in the past, I'm in control of the present, and I can do things here that start to bring things to bear.
And so people might be making an OODA loop comparison right now, as opposed to causing action. That person is now reacting to action that you've taken, really is what it comes down to.
Absolutely. And I use the OODA loop analogy a lot too, especially around gun guys, right? You know, they like those kind of things. You know, in our martial art, we talk about knocking them out of time. And when I'm in the act phase and I've got him all the way back at observe, I'm ahead of the game. I'm ahead of the cycle, and I'm in control here. And there's lots of ways. I mean, I've distracted people in training with my voice. You know, when you start that encounter and you start it with a real primal scream at somebody that they're not expecting, that can startle them for that split second to act in the way that you need to. I mean, I'm not saying let me see your war face, but it actually.
Okay, I thought you were going to say that because I was ready. I was ready.
All right, should we call you Private Joker for the rest of the
day?
Exactly. You know, but there are lots of ways to do that. To me, the way to learn that, though, is to hit the mat, to get into training. You know, some of the best training you're going to get is, you know, when a guy as big as Greg Ellifritz starts tying you up and you got to go after stuff. You know, when Craig Douglas is got you out in the dirt in gear and, you know, rolls you over and starts beating on your face, you go, all right, well, I got to learn some stuff now. I have not had the privilege yet of getting to train under either of those guys. But I've watched a lot of what they do from afar. And those are two nationally known examples that I think are exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, end of the month, Craig is rolling into Cleveland. Steadfast Defense is hosting, and one of the things I've been encouraging people to do is, you know, the class is sold out already, but the Managing Unknown Contacts portion on Friday evening is available for open enrollment. Might be the 3 most important hours of defensive training that people take, because it talks about how it is to use the voice to really interrupt that interview process. This is a before the fight skill, but using that voice to interrupt the process, amazing stuff, no doubt about it. Amazing.
Listen, if you're in the area, I wish I was in the area. I'd be there for sure.
Yeah, well, I'm lucky enough to be attending for the full weekend. It looks like so.
Are you? Oh. Yeah. Here's the green-eyed monster showing up on my world. Jeez.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll shoot you some little videos and let you know how it's going.
Oh man, that makes me feel so much better. Thanks, Paul.
It's almost like being there, isn't it, brother?
I mean, that's great. I don't even need to be there now because you're going to send little videos of you training. I mean, it's just like I'm there.
Maybe you could narrate them afterwards. It'd be perfect.
There you go. Here's where Paul got shivved.
So, you know, we're getting close to time here, John, and I don't, you know, our show is as long as it is, but also I need to be respectful of your time. When I say, you know, the protected life is as long as it needs to go, but, you know, you've got things that you need to be doing. And I kind of want to dive into a tough question. And, you know, maybe there's a short answer, maybe there's not. But have you gotten it wrong in a video yet? When you've posted up some ideas, have you gotten it maybe not quite where you think it should be, and how have people reacted, and what have you done about it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, again, if you're a student, if you're the master, I think sometimes people get in that goal, oh, I can never be wrong, and so then I have to defend myself all the time. I'm just a student. Not long ago, I utterly blew a video.
Okay.
I did a whole video, and I totally backwards who the attacker was and who the victim was. That's just the truth. So it was a third world country, not sure exactly where, South or Central America. Guys on a motorcycle came in. Guy pulls a machete, who's there. They kind of roll up to, and then the fight is on. Well, I didn't see. It was just in the corner, and I just didn't see the fact that one of the guys on the motorcycle had gotten off and started pulling something, and that's where the fight began. So I said to the guys that were standing there were the aggressors. The guys on the motorcycle were the victims. And let me tell you, the community let me hear it. They let me know what was up, and I watched it, and I went, "You guys are totally right. I utterly blew this one. This one, never mind. Forget it. Forget I said a thing." I went back and re-narrated it. So I went back, reshot intro, conclusion, reshot the narration, and just said, "Look, okay." And I said in the beginning, guys, I'm redoing this one because I got it wrong. And you told me I got it wrong, and you were right, and I wasn't. So let's go back and do it the right way. And even in the narration, I said, here's where I missed. Here's this little spot. See this right here? I didn't see it. And because I didn't see it, that made me see all this stuff differently, right? And that brings a whole new set of lessons. Now, why? Well, where I train in martial arts, a place called Attitude First Martial Arts Academy, our motto is train your brain and not your ego. And I try not to be invested in being right, or in being the expert, I should say. You know, I know everything. God, I don't know everything. Nothing would make me happier. I want to go train with more people in more ways and get a broader skill set. I mean, I've got some knowledge. I've got some abilities. I mean, I'm way farther down the road than a lot of people, but I'm not the master. So when I see that stuff, to me, that's a great learning opportunity for me. And I think also, as the head of my community, as the head of ASP, that sets the culture. You know, that I don't want to be seen as, oh God, don't tell John he's wrong, because, you know, he'll chew you out. Come on, man. If you're right, I would like to say my big thing, if we're sitting on opposite sides of the table arguing, if I realize you're right, we stop arguing right there, because I'm going to come around to your side of the table and go, you're right, I'm an idiot. My bad. And may we all be that way, you know? Yeah.
Humble plays well, doesn't it? You know, and it's not really a play. It's just a good way to be, and knowing what our limits are and accepting those, and accepting when we make a mistake. That's always a good call.
Well, and I also don't think that my way is the way. I think there are very few things in the self-defense world that there is only one way, that there's only the way. I think, for instance, the rules of firearm safety are well enough established that we pretty much have the way. Though we have two ways to express it. You know, the NRA has 3 rules. Cooper has 4. Which one's the best? See, even within that, we have firearm safety, but what's the best way?
Right.
Listen, when I say I defend myself this way, well, you know, to go master Ken for a moment, right? And enter the dojo. Oh, that stuff is bullcrap. That'll get you killed on the streets. Okay, man, do it your way. And if that works for you, if your way works for you, then awesome. I think my way works. And when a guy comes and shows me, you know, we had in class where a guy says, man, this isn't working like you want it to work, John. This doesn't work. Okay, well, let's see it. Well, what does work for you? Well, this works for me. Then go with that and be excited about it. So I think that's a better way to train.
I appreciate that. I very much appreciate that. You know, I've got one last question that I'm going to kind of establish as the final question I'm going to ask folks on the show on a weekly basis when I have guests. But before I do that, John, I want to take just a moment and acknowledge what it is that you've done and say thank you again. The simple fact that you've dedicated the time and the energy that you have to providing an educational resource to so many people. I really appreciate your commitment to that. I appreciate how much you're honoring your vision. I appreciate the humble attitude that you have despite the popularity of what it is that you do. And I want to just take the time to say thank you very much and keep it up and let me know what it is that I can do to support you. So thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate that. It's I really feel like the firearms community has welcomed me with open arms, and I've met some of the finest, kindest, best people that I have ever been around. And I say that having been around some pretty good people in my life.
I could not
definitely part of that.
More. Yeah, the firearms community in general, you know, boy, oh boy, what a great bunch of people.
Yeah.
So the final question I've got for you, John, before I turn you loose and let you go is what thing are you going to do today? What are you going to focus on as you carry out the rest of your day to help yourself lead a safer life, to lead that more protected life? What's going to be so important to you?
Well, you know, I try to live every day, attitude, skills, and plan, right? So it's an interesting day for me. My son plays football, and so he has a game today. It's weird that he has a game on Wednesday, but they do this week. And so I'm going to be on a school campus, which in Arizona is a non-permissive environment. And, you know, we lead the way in gun rights in America, but not on school campuses. So, you know, for me, I always look at it and say, I want to win the fight before the fight. If I can be aware of what's going on around me, and if I can head off problems before they become problems, then, you know, as they say, I think it was Musashi who first said that the ultimate aim of martial arts is to not have to use them. And that's what I try to do with all my skills. The ultimate aim is not to have to use them. And to me then, what does that mean? When I'm aware, when my game's on point, then I get to go and be kind everywhere I go. And I get to go spread joy because I'm not worried. I'm not like a deer, you know, with my head up all the time going, you know, oh no, what's going to happen to me? I can go love on people. I can take big risks because, now when I say big risks, I don't mean physical risks. I mean emotional, spiritual, relational risks because I'm safe, because I'm not really worried about it. And that's where my focus is going to be today.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, brother. I really appreciate it. Before we go, John, tell folks where it is that they can find you and what it is that you do.
So active self-protection exists in all the social media spaces that you might expect. We have a website, activeselfprotection.com. You can go there to find classes. You can go there to find every narrated self-defense lesson is on our website. You can find all kinds of stuff there. Our biggest social media presence by far is Facebook. So it's facebook.com/active self-protection, all one word. Right now, we're 167,000 fans today, something like that. Crazy. I never expected to be a D-list celebrity in the gun world. You can also find us. We have a Twitter. Our Twitter is at get_ASP. GetAsp is our Twitter. We're on Instagram at Active Self Protection. I'm on YouTube at Active Self Protection as well. And so you can find us in all those venues. And what is it we do? My mission is to help people in all walks of life protect themselves and their families by building their attitude, their skills, and their plan.
Beautiful. John, thanks again for taking the time to spend almost 90 minutes, in fact, more than 90 minutes with a little bit of pre-show banter that you and I had. Very much appreciated. Folks, I appreciate you for sticking around. We still have a bunch of viewers that are hanging on, and I appreciate that. Folks, you can find the Protected Life every single week, and all you need to do is go to ssa.training/TPL weekly. If you go to that site, that's where the show is playing live on the Safety Solutions Academy website. It's right there, ssa.training/TPL weekly. And I'd love to have you back next Wednesday at noon. If the show changes, I'll put it out on social media. I'll let you know on the website, all those kinds of good things if I need to accommodate a guest schedule, whatever the case might be. If you have questions, comments, concerns, constructive criticism, topics for future shows, please send an email to paul@safetysolutionsacademy.com. I would love to hear from you. And also, folks, I appreciate you. I'm glad that you're here. This has been a great show. It's been entertaining to talk with John. It's been an intellectual show. Man, thanks for sticking around at the place where you're going to find the best self-defense and personal security information around anywhere. John, one last time, thank you so much for coming out today.
There I am. Sorry, I was on mute. Thanks for having me, Paul. And I just want you to know I appreciate you, man. I'm glad to call you my friend.
Yeah, we do have a good friendship. And I tell you what, man, I'm looking forward to the next time we get to spend some time together. Maybe at NRA we'll be able to shake hands and share a meal and share some stories. Right, brother?
Amen. Sounds great to me.
All right, folks, get on out there. Get yourself some training. When you do, make sure you keep it simple. Please stay safe. And as always, have a great day.